Good afternoon, Democrats. It's 4:15 on the 10th day of March, 2022. I'm Scott Hamilton sitting in for Alicia Andrews, who is representing our party this week, along with our vice chair, Eric Proctor, and our DNC committee man and woman, David Walters and Kaylin Free. They're in DC and already getting so much information and good ideas to bring back to Oklahoma. I had a conversation with our chair earlier today, and the information that she's bringing back is absolutely invaluable. So that's exciting. I want to say that for those of you who tuned in today expecting to see Amber Jensen, chair of CD3 in Oklahoma, who was to be our guest host, I inadvertently gave her the wrong day, so I apologize for that, and I'll make sure that she gets to be a guest host real soon so you can hear from her. Well, I want to mention something that everyone is aware of, and I want to talk just a little bit about gas prices in the United States, and in particular here in Oklahoma. The number of calls that we have received in the office this week blaming President Biden for gas prices is incredible. You would not believe the number of people who have called and cursed at us and complained. And when someone is angry like that, you cannot speak logic to them. And so I'm hopeful that this will help you as you talk to folks in your own communities about what's going on. You know, any president has a great deal of power, but not the power to raise or lower gas prices. That's not how this works. Certainly, the situation in Ukraine, the invasion by Russia of that sovereign nation, has created some additional issues with gas prices, but they were going up even before this. And when Governor Stitt in his demand letter, and I'm putting that in big air quotes, to President Biden demanding that we stop importing Russian oil because Oklahoma oil and gas producers were ready to step up to the challenge and produce more. And he crowed about that again this week. Well, interestingly enough, the leaders of some of the biggest oil producers in Oklahoma stood up and said, no, that's not going to happen. We are first and foremost going to take care of our shareholders. So that means we're not going to be producing more oil and gas right now. We're going to let the market run like it is. Now, I have to tell you something. It is so frustrating to hear that we have chosen people to do away with and profits to lift up. So it's all profits over people. And sadly, our Republican legislators in Oklahoma have dined at the table of big oil for so long that they are beholden to them now and have no influence over what they do or how they do it. That's what happens when you have so much private interference with legislation. Now, there's talk about how prices will just keep going up, and that may be true. There's no way I can predict that or anyone else. But I will tell you that it's not the fault of President Biden or anyone in his administration that gas prices are so expensive right now. Instead, it's what we continue to find that too often companies put profit above people. And I have to tell you that our Republican legislators are all complicit in this because of the money that they take from big oil, from the way that they are in the pockets of so many people. I'm not claiming that as a broad brush, everyone, but I will say we have the experience to know what that can do and what it is doing to Oklahomans. So it's the market is ruling itself right now with the input, or rather lack of input, from oil and gas producers. What's interesting is there are still rigs idle in Oklahoma. There are still oil field workers who are unemployed. This would be a great time to put them back to work, but until the shareholders make their big profits, that's not going to happen. So I hope that helps a little bit. I was going to actually provide the annual income from some of the top CEOs of oil and gas companies, and decided that it was too much because it would make you so frustrated as it does me. Now, one thing that I will tell you is that um, gas stations are saying, well, we charge the customer whatever we get charged for a delivery of oil or gas. Now, there's a 7-Eleven right near my home, and the prices increased yesterday 3 times. You can't tell me that they received 3 shipments of gasoline in one day. So there's a lot of mistruth out there, and sadly, it's the people who can least afford it, who are really suffering the biggest damage right now. I mean, if you're working with a tight budget as it is, then adding extra money to fill your gas tank, or forget filling it, just to put gas in your tank to get to work and get your kids to school, that money's got to come from somewhere. So does that mean you don't pay your electric bill this month, or you skimp on food? And those are not decisions that we should have to make. Sadly, that's where we are right now in Oklahoma. That's why it's time for positive change in our legislature, in our city councils, in our town councils, in our mayors, in public education, school boards. It's time for change. I know that there are some people in our state who will vote Republican just because that's what they've always done. All you have to do is read a few comments on any news story, and you'll hear how great a person the last president was. And those minds are going to be very hard to change. And it probably won't be until some of those folks are literally left penniless until they start to see reality. But there are others in our state who are smarter, who are better educated in ways of the world, who know that we cannot continue to do what we've been doing for the last couple of decades. It's very frustrating for all of us to see endless performative legislation brought by these people who simply are not caring about Oklahomans anymore. We look at all the public education bills this season. It's horrifying to see how people are so eager to privatize education. The whole voucher thing is just, they're pulling the wool over people's eyes, and I'm very discouraged by that, because ultimately vouchers will cause the ruin, particularly of rural schools, but also in our cities as well. So it's up to all of us, not just to pay attention to what's happening in our legislature this session, but to be proactively registering Democrats. We still have just over a month before the filing deadline to run for office in Oklahoma this November. A lot of people are still in that. I'm thinking about it. I'm talking to my family, and believe me, now's the time to do that. But I hope that you will continue to provide us with names and contact information from friends, from coworkers, from your neighbors, anyone who you believe would be a serious candidate that you could get behind. Now, I need to say this: some seats are statistically unwinnable for a Democrat. That doesn't mean we shouldn't have a candidate, because every time there's a candidate on the ballot, it sensitizes our neighbors to the fact that they have a choice. And it may not be this year, but will make an impact this year for the next election. So please, if you've ever thought about running for office, consider this your year. Because of the resignation of Senator Inhofe, we have opportunities up and down the ballot, and this is a particularly unique time for Democrats, particularly in Tulsa and Oklahoma counties, because we expect the turnout to be very, very big. And this is a chance to really make a significant change in the complexion of our legislators in the state capitol. It's time that we really take to heart the needs of everyday Oklahomans, working folks just like you and me. Unfortunately, we've been doing this for too long. And the chaos that exists in our state, in our local and state governments, is chaos that, if we're not careful, will just self-perpetuate. We must stop the chaos and replace it with common sense. Well, I didn't mean to get all wound up today, but this is something that's been heavily on my mind because of the number of people that have been calling us and writing to us. And I don't mean just during office hours. I'm talking about voicemails at 2, 3 in the morning from people who are so angry at President Biden. So I hope that that's given you enough so that when you're talking to people about gas prices, and believe me, I commiserate too, but when someone starts to blame the president, it gives me a chance to explain the reality of the situation. Whether they listen or hear the message, that's up to them. But at least I made the attempt, and I encourage you to do the same. Well, friends, that's all of our time today. I want to invite you to be back here tomorrow at 4:15 when our guest host will be Robbie White, who's the chair of Oklahoma County Democrats. They're doing some great work. They've got some wonderful things planned and ways for you to get involved as well. So until then, tomorrow afternoon at 4:15, on behalf of all of us at the Oklahoma Democratic Party, I'm Scott J. Hamilton. Thanking you for tuning in. And please, tonight and tomorrow morning, be weather aware, take good care of yourself and one another. Good afternoon.